Stephen, welcome to trunblock.com. I'd like to start this conversation by asking you how you would define Penderyn's USP.
Well, Penderyn is a very unique single malt whisky, and the main reason for that is we have a very unusual design of whisky still. We call our Penderyn Faraday still. It was designed by a guy called Dr. David Faraday, who had a great scientific pedigree because he was a descendant of the famous Victorian scientist Michael Faraday. And that still does give us a point of uniqueness that I think is very, very important, because it gives us a light, fruity single malt whisky, which is a lot less oily than our, say, Scottish equivalents. And so we occupy a space in terms of flavour and profile, which is very different to other whiskies around the world. And I know this because I've been very fortunate to taste our whiskies all around the world. And people who are experienced with Scotch whisky and other whiskies, they come to Penderyn, they notice a little bit of difference, and they say, I wasn't expecting that. The other big difference, of course, is our Madeira finish, the fact that we use our Madeira casks, our rich Madeira wine casks, which again help to give a bit of creamy toffee fudge on top of the fruity flavours. So I think those 2 points, the still, the Madeira finish, give us a very nice positioning.
Now, you've been CEO here for some 18 years now. What do you think have been the key milestones for Penderyn in that time?
Well, I think since the launch of the brand, which of course was in 2004, which was the first time that whisky had been released in Wales for over 100 years. So it was a great story to bring whisky making back to Wales, very significant. Probably move on then to 2008, when we opened our distillery to the public for the very first time. And then in 2012, when we actually upgraded the facilities. So there have been kind of milestones through the early years. Actually getting into travel retail quite early was very important to us, because we understood the nature of the business. We understood that it was going to be a difficult market, perhaps for a smaller brand, but to be in this sort of international shop window was going to be a great advantage, even to a small brand like Penderyn at that time.
It's still a major showcase for you.
So incredible, you know. And so in the early years, that was really restricted to the UK, where we were in with, some of the main airports in the UK. But that was very valuable. So there have been significant milestones along the way. It was quite a long process of building credibility on the brand, although we were winning awards for quality quite early in the process. And the ultimate aim was always to produce a world-class single malt whisky. So we've been doing that for a long time now, but you have to obviously create the awareness of that with people in the industry and then with the general public.
Just how important do you think being Welsh is to Penderyn, and what importance does Penderyn carry for Wales itself?
I think it's very important that we are able to wrap our brand in a sort of blanket of Welshness. I think the fact that it's a world-class single malt whisky is the most important thing, and the fact that it occupies a unique position in terms of flavour profile is important. But malt whisky is an authentic story always, and I think being from Wales and having the opportunity to tell stories that frankly others can't tell, because we were one of a set originally, and now there's a few others, but we have the opportunity to tell a lot of stories that others can't. So that was all very important to us. In terms of Wales, I don't think Wales, and most people will probably agree with this, Wales doesn't have a lot of really great brands. We need more. And Penderyn has been well supported, by everybody in Wales, whisky drinkers and non-whisky drinkers alike, frankly. And so we have a brand now which is becoming, I'm proud to say, very iconic for Wales, and that's important. And I think more of that we need in the food and drink sector in this country.
Now, getting through COVID was a really difficult experience for many.
Yes.
Yet you actually managed to grow the business during that period, opened the Llandudno facility and found the capital to build another brand new distillery right here in Swansea, where we're standing. Just how tough was COVID for you?
I think like everybody else, the first 3 months were pretty terrifying. We were trying to gauge what the implications were going to be. Travel retail shut down very quickly. Some of our export markets slowed down very, very quickly as well. We were fortunate because a number of our major customers in the UK were the UK multiple supermarkets, and they were continuing to operate. So that meant that we had people that we could serve. Our visitor facilities closed down, so that wasn't great. But we quickly sort of established that we could continue to operate, at least in some fashion, and we already had the plans to build our distilleries in place, but we had to execute them. And that was difficult, you know, trying to drive from south to north Wales with no hotels open, no restaurants to go to. I'm very proud of the job our team did in being able to get that particular distillery open probably within 2 or 3 months of the original plan date. And it's a beautiful facility as well. So it was very challenging, but we were fortunate, but we worked hard and we got through the whole pandemic with some significant growth, both in the brand and in our facilities. So we're quite pleased with that.
Moving on, what's the current split between your domestic and international business? And actually, how do you see the ratio changing over time?
Yeah, so our core business at the moment in the UK is around about 70% of the total. And that's continuing to grow and continuing to be a very positive picture. But as a strategy for the business, we really want to grow more in exports. So I see the sort of 30% of exports and travel retail, you know, if things go well, grow into 40-45% over the next 3 or so years. And that's a big priority for us. And the way we're going to do that is really focus on Europe, particularly France and Germany, on the USA, and on China as well, which is an important market, which I think will become a very, very significant market for us with the partnerships we're developing. So we think we have a very clear view of how we want to move this ahead, and it is very much about growing travel retail and export.
Okay, let's just deep dive a little bit. So what then is your strategy for change? I mean, you have this rather ambitious target you just alluded to. I mean, how are you going to deliver that?
Well, the key for us is we work with long-term partners. We work with people who are incredibly passionate about our brand and our business. And we want to work with them and hopefully they'll invest with us in terms of moving. Now, you know, that brings up challenges as well because as a small operator within the industry, you know, competing against some very large corporations, we don't always have partners who have the reach that we would ideally like. So we do have to work very hard with them, but we put full-time brand ambassadors into the markets. We make regular visits for all sorts of reasons to the market. And it's about, ultimately, almost like a hand sell brand. It's about talking and tasting and raising the profile of the brand, and then raising the profile in other ways through press and through really good social media and reaching out to influencers and people who can really take that message and disseminate it.
You say you want to keep close to your existing partners and you want to build them into being long-term partners.
Yes.
But you're still a relatively small player, as you've just said.
Yes.
How do you manage to ensure those partners are actually going to stay close to you? You know how fickle this market can be.
Yeah, well, realistically, you know, they're also in business to grow their businesses, and sometimes they can do that by growing with us, and they also do that by widening their portfolio. So I think the biggest challenge...
I think that's a very important point.
It is an important point, and you know, I mean, some of the partners we've worked with for 15 years or more now, and some maybe shorter, and you know, we're not afraid to change in a market if we feel it's not working, but you've got to give it time. You know, you've got to give people time to work. But I think it's really about making sure that the story on our side is exciting, and that we can continually refresh and rejuvenate without losing the essence. You know, the essence of what is Penderyn in terms of our style of whiskey is the most important thing. But I think, you know, we do a lot of things to refresh the story every year, and there is a demand from our partners. What's new? You know, what have you got for us? You know, and that can be in single cask, that can be in special bottlings, that can be in our Icons of Wales, whole range of things. And also reminding them all the time that we have core whiskies which are truly world class, and we really want you to focus on them. I wouldn't pretend it's easy. And when you're a small player in the business, you have to put a lot of work into it and a lot of energy into it.
Well, just developing that, I mean, we all recognise that the single malt market is highly competitive.
Yes.
Retailers' demands, not just for original, distinctive products, as you just mentioned, yours, for example, but also, they also require very high margins. And this is always something of a juggling act for many brands to stay competitive.
Yes.
Just how agile do you think your business is? And can you actually give some examples of initiatives that you've turned out well for both you and for your retail partners?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's very challenging to continually add value for our retail partners, and we have to be very imaginative, both in terms of what's in the bottle and how we present it. But I think the key point for Penderyn always is, we do occupy a flavour and style of space by using our unique Penderyn Faraday stills that others can't deliver. A lot of new distilleries come out now, and there's a lot of new distilleries in the UK and world whisky distilleries elsewhere. Most people are using pairs of pot stills.
Yes.
We are not. We're using something that is very different. And I think that gives us an edge, gives us a very strong USP. But beyond that then, of course, we have to be very creative with the wood that we use. And of course, we were very fortunate, and I was very fortunate to work with Dr. Jim Swan at Penderyn for many, many years. I mean, he was with us from 2001 up until he passed away in 2016. He was the director of our business. So we learnt the importance of attention to detail, particularly in wood management. And our team now, our team of lady distillers who have made a terrific job of continuing on his legacy, have really got that ability to deliver truly world-class spirits. So, and then of course it's about, can we tell stories? Can we wrap those in a Welsh story that's going to be of interest outside of Wales? We don't want to be talking about things that only people at home will want to know about. And so we've been able to do that. We have a series of whiskies called Icons of Wales, where we tell stories about poets, about Welsh culture, about events, try and be very timely with something, which all have resonance outside of our home. And that's been very good for us. That's been very successful for us.
So you can magnify local to global.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be relevant in some way. You've got to have some relevance to it. Otherwise, what's going to get people's interest. But we've been able to do that. But it has to be a combination of the liquid in the bottle, the design, and the story. And if you've got three elements there that are going to get praise, and the whole thing works as one, then you're onto a winner. And we've experienced that a few times. We have high ambition for some of our bottlings, but for others we don't. Some of them are just about telling a story that just lays another part of the brand. But there are others then which we know are going to, or we hope, are going to go much further afield and are going to really reach a new audience. And that could be in music, it could be in poetry, it could be in lots of different aspects of culture. But malt whiskies are a great way to tell story.
Now, as I understand it, Penderyn has got distribution in over 50 markets currently.
Yes.
What international markets are you now prioritising beyond the ones you've already identified?
So I think as a business, it is very important for us to focus in export because we're a small team. We can't go everywhere. So beyond the sort of key four markets, really in Europe, France, Germany, USA, China, there are other markets then, places like Japan, Taiwan, Australia, that I think are very important to us, Scandinavia, that would be good as maybe secondary markets, maybe markets that are still very valuable, but we're not necessarily going to achieve the volume that we can do in those.
You also need feet
full
on the
markets.
ground, don't you?
Well, we do, yes, yeah. And we have full-time brand ambassadors in places like France and Germany. We have a full-time brand ambassador in Taiwan. So it's places, there are places where I think, where the understanding of malt whiskey is already strong, and where we feel we can add to the category. So I think that's important. But yes, our plan is to keep exporting to a lot of countries, but we're realistic, and we can probably focus on a small number to really push the brand message.
Well, let's just stay in Asia for a moment. Last year you achieved a very notable success for Penderyn by launching in China.
Yes.
I mean, how's that going? And how much difference has that made to the entire Penderyn business?
It's very significant. It's going very well. It's still early days in terms of it's a 5-year sort of partnership really, and it's a combination of they're going to help to build our brand in China, and we've also sold them some bulk Penderyn spirit as well that they can mature.
You can name the retailer.
So. The company is called Port Union, the parent company, but yes, it's a very productive relationship for us. It is a long-term relationship. They are very passionate about the Penderyn brand, which was important, of course, to us. But we'll see how it develops. When you're working with China, I think things are a bit slower than they would be in maybe some other markets. We have to be very clear about with communication and making sure that we understand what they want, they understand what we're expecting, what our real ambitions are. But what I like about this partner is that they do what they say they're going to do. They're very positive, and we've been able to really focus in on what's important. So it's been a big step forward for the business, and it's added a very significant market. As we came out of COVID, and some of the growth aspirations that we'd achieved during COVID, we're probably starting to level a little bit. It's given us another little sort of step forward, step up.
Well, as you said, I mean, China's not the easiest of markets to manage.
No.
Can you say what your learnings have been to date, and have they surprised you?
I think the main learning has been to be very patient in terms of the communication and the understanding, that they don't always understand what we want and vice versa. And so it's just a matter of really being particularly careful about how we move things forward. And I think communication has been the key challenge, really. Beyond that, I think we've done pretty well with it, and we did a lot of work in China beforehand. We really did try and understand the market, understand what the opportunities would be, and we turned down a number of opportunities because we just didn't feel they were right. So we've been patient, and we've been a bit careful in terms of how we approach the market, and that seems to be paying off.
Okay, you as a business like to see yourself as a flag carrier for world whiskey.
Yes.
Now this category has been much of a talking point over the years.
Yes.
But of course it's no longer exclusively the domain of Scotch and Irish whiskies.
Yes.
I mean, what's your own view of world whiskey, and how do you see its evolution?
When we started 22 years ago, and then the brand came onto the market, in those early days you wouldn't have talked about a category of world whiskey. Although there were people from India, there were people from Sweden, ourselves were the really early people into the market. But this whole idea of a world whiskey outside of the traditional whiskey making areas now has emerged, I think, the last 5 years. And for me, what's really interesting is I've seen some of the very big players in the market support it and recognise it. And I think that was important, that the Scotch whisky industry and the other big industries do recognise that world whisky has a part to play. Why? I think it's because the quality has been excellent from these places, and as a group we've earned the respect. So it's emerged now, and it's there as a category, and I think we can quite rightly say we're one of the founding members of that, because we've been around longer than many of them. But for me it's exciting, and it's exciting to be part of that. It's exciting to be part of a category. World whisky, we're also part of a new industry in Wales, by the way, because we were the only ones at the start. Now there are 5, maybe 6 whisky distilleries in Wales. There's 35 licenses for distilleries in Wales generally. So we've got an embryonic industry, which is going to be very valuable to the economy in Wales as time goes on as well. So the whole thing has really developed in a way that we probably couldn't have seen at the start. But I think we're very happy to be part of that category and hopefully be seen as leading lights as well.
Of course, these same global players that you've talked about recognise the world whiskey is a reality now, and they're on the acquisition trail, aren't they?
Yeah, I suppose they are. Yeah, I think they're looking for whiskies with good stories, good businesses, good potential. So that's going to be part of the, one of the challenges in the future, I'm sure. But it's nice to see that the category is being recognised. That's the most important thing for me. And it's nice to see that Penderyn pretty much always gets mentioned as being one of those category members. And the quality, keeping the quality going, keeping the quality high has been, I think, part of the essence of what we all try and do.
I mean, you're a leading light for sure. You've got your own business dynamic. You're a very ambitious company, but can you see yourself being vulnerable to a potential takeover?
Well, we're a private business. We have shareholders that I answer to. That would be up to them, really, ultimately. But all I can say is that the passion that those people share with me and with our team is phenomenal. The shareholders are all a fairly, limited bunch of people. We've not added any shareholders for many years. They've never taken anything out of the business. They've always been willing to reinvest profits.
So it's intrinsically Welsh in that respect,
well, it is. I mean, it's very focused group who are doing it not necessarily for any short-term gain. So, you know, they're very committed to the business. Longer term, who knows?
That's admirable. So anyway, here we are. This is Penderyn's third distillery. Still work in progress, but
so.
I understand it's going to be ready in a couple of months' time.
Indeed.
It reflects your growth as a business, clearly,
Yeah.
and also reflects a demand for your portfolio of product. But does it still rather beg the question? I mean, do you really need it if you could actually develop your other distilleries, or are you rather constrained by them? What were the key decisions in driving the decision to build this extraordinary development?
Yeah. Well, I think there are two very distinct reasons for being here today, being in Swansea, being at our third distillery. The first is that we wanted more production capacity, and really we are constrained in the Brecon Beacons. We're a relatively small site, make 400,000 litres of pure alcohol there. In North Wales, we only make Llandudno. We make 100,000 litres of pure alcohol. We can this capacity, and this site will be another 400,000 litres.
It's almost double.
So it's going to be almost double of what we can do as a business. So production capacity was one thing, but I mean equally important was the strategy of really building the brand and really owning Wales as a single malt whisky. You know, we want people to come to Wales in the way that they go to Ireland, and they think maybe of Guinness or they think of Jameson's as being leading brands. I think we want them to feel that as part of Wales. And now there are 3 sites that they can visit and see us work, 2 in south to mid Wales and then 1 in North Wales. So we have good coverage over the country. We're not far from, we're 2 hours from London, we're 2 hours from Manchester, Liverpool. So it's about bringing people in as well and creating brand ambassadors. Local visitors, UK visitors, international visitors.
You have 3 sites now.
Yes.
And I understand that, you know, with 3 different visitor centres.
Yes.
Now, I understand the numbers are going to be quite robust when this site finally gets up and running, and you'll be looking at something approaching 150,000 visitors a year. That's a very high number, must put you right in the top tier of visitor centres.
Yeah, I think if you aggregate the 3 distilleries together, there'd be very few distilleries that would be getting that sort of number around the UK. It's really important to us, you know, and it's important that we can bring people in, tell them about brand story, get them going away as brand ambassadors.
Take away some product too.
And take away some product as they do. But most importantly, even if they don't take it away, they can still know where they can buy it in the future.
Exactly.
You know? So I think it's a great facility for us. And of course, tourism is part of the business then as well. It's part of the business model. It broadens, I think, the strength of the business a little bit. And at this site in Swansea, I mean, this is the Copper Quarter. We are the sort of anchor brand really for the regeneration of the area. And there are other leisure brands now confirmed coming into the area. So, I mean, you know, our numbers on visitors might be a little bit modest, depending on how this particular area of Wales takes off for tourism. You know, it's going to be a very exciting, I think, 3 to 5 years on this site and in Swansea in general.
Well, Swansea seems to be regenerating itself as well.
It is, you know, there's a lot going on. We've got a new concert hall theatre in town. You know, we've got great stadium facilities. There's a lot of things happening in the area now, which the city needed, really. But it's good to see it
Swansea
happening.
Football Club's just down the road, isn't it?
It's just there, yes. Very close to my heart as well, I have to say.
Okay. Now, let's talk about something that's actually close to my heart.
Okay.
In a world where sustainability is now a watchword
Yes.
For businesses and arguably a business accelerator,
Yes.
what's Penderyn actually doing regarding recycling,
Yes.
packaging and general clean environment issues?
Well, it's something that we feel and our shareholders feel very passionate about. So it is something that's very much top of the agenda. So if we take packaging, for example, we're looking to reduce the amount of packaging, as you'd expect us to do. Later this year, one of our ranges will be relaunched in a much lighter glass bottle, so there'll be less glass, still very recyclable, but less glass per unit. In terms of energy, all of our facilities, other than this one, because it's a listed building, but others have got solar panels at our warehouse, on our distillery in the Brecon Beacons. We're moving our employees slowly into electric cars. I'm driving an electric car now, and we've got a number of employees who are changing over this year. So we're kind of looking at all aspects of the business and saying, how can we be more sustainable? What can we do? Some of that is being driven by our own people. Some of that's been driven by our customers as well. So, you know, we feel we're working hard on it. There are some things which are challenging, difficult to solve in the short term, where we'll have to wait for technology to catch up. But there's very much a will there to move it on, and I think you'll see lots of different ways in which Penderyn is becoming more sustainable.
We talked about travel retail earlier. Just how important is it to your business going forward the next couple of years?
Yes. I think travel retail is absolutely key to our strategy for growing our exports. So much so that right in the middle of the pandemic, we recruited somebody who was a specialist in travel retail. Because up until Simon came on board, we had been reasonably successful with the UK, but we had struggled to actually get outside of the UK in terms of travel retail business. And it was difficult. We'd kind of reached a level UK-wise, which was interesting, but couldn't go any further. So I felt it was quite brave in the middle of the pandemic to recruit anybody, frankly, because there was still that uncertainty.
Indeed.
But we were very much planning for the longer term. And it's paid off, because now you see that we are suddenly establishing ourselves in travel retail markets around the world. Very exciting, and it's given another dimension in terms of our growth potential. So very important. We made some hard decisions. We're reaping some benefits of that, but obviously still a lot of hard work that we've got to do.
Staying inside travel retail, what are the sort of key highlights that you would say have happened to the business in the last 12 months? And what do you expect in the next 12 months? Sorry, Simon.
No, I think, well, the most important thing is, of course, because of the trauma that was caused in travel retail, we sense that there is an appetite for resetting and re-looking at what would have been the establishment prior to the pandemic and prior to everything shutting down. So we feel that that's given us the opportunity to get in now to areas that possibly wouldn't have considered us before, whether that be in Scandinavia, where we're now with Viking Line, whether it be in China, duty free, which, again, complementing the domestic business we do in China, or whether it be in different places in the USA or Europe, which are all little sprouts of new business that are shooting up. So I think I think the timing for us really has turned out quite well, because people are open to new ideas, they are open to new brands, and it appears, at least in some places, they are open to smaller independent businesses, which isn't always the case.
So can they expect to see new brands from you, or variants from brands in the next 12 months?
Yeah, so we're looking at different expressions of whiskey, we're looking at different size bottles, we're looking at things that will be travel retail exclusive, which we understand is probably the most valuable proposition that we can do. So all of those things will be important, and it's something that our travel retail person is driving very hard for us in the business, and obviously has the appetite to get that done.
For sure. Okay, so it's time now for the elevator pitch, Stephen. Why should retailers give Penderyn a place and space in their plans?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Why Penderyn? Penderyn is a world-class single malt. I think we've demonstrated that over many years with a lot of consistency, but more than that, it has a style, being lighter than your typical Scotch whisky or malt whisky, lighter, less oily, very fruity, and very creamy. And I think it just occupies a position of taste which customers will find different. And so we offer an alternative that also comes from a country that probably people haven't heard of, with stories that people haven't heard of. So I think we have a refreshing offering for the malt whisky industry that will add to the category and add to our customers' portfolio.
I have to say, it's a very fine tasting whisky, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
One last question. If there's one thing, and I suspect there'll probably be more, that you want to say to the industry who are viewing this video, what would it or they be?
Well, I think we've touched on world whisky, and I think it's an exciting time for us as being part of the world whisky portfolio. And I think that's a great way for us to be able to travel around the world and to be part of that sort of world whisky cluster. So I would definitely urge our customers and our potential customers to consider that category.
Think differently.
And to think about it, and to think about how Penderyn and other world whiskies would fit in. You know, we love single malt whiskies from Scotland and other places, and we've had such great support from those, you know. But I think there's room to broaden and to make the category that bit more interesting.
Stephen Davies, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.